Welcome. This is Real Estate and the Economy this week. My name is Jared Uraine with the Five Diamond Group here at Vice Realty, and I've got Miguel Francis,
That's right,
the armchair economist, with us today. How are you, sir?
Good. Last week I mentioned a definition for economist.
Yes.
Well, it's been updated, so this is definition.
Oh, it's changed.
Yeah, 2.0.
Oh, appropriately so for an economist. Yes?
Yeah. An economist is somebody who doesn't have the personality skills to be an accountant.
And a true statement.
Yeah. Is that a slight against economists or accountants? I'm not sure.
Yeah, mathematicians, whatever.
Yeah.
Well, that's this episode today is going to be covering the real estate and the economy. Miguel Francis is a veteran of wealth management, previously with JP Chase, and I am a broker salesperson here at Vice Realty. We are just going to dive right into some of the content here for today's episode, and what you can expect in this episode is going to be a expanded version of the real estate update locally, as well as nationally. We're going to cover the Great Garbage Patch, right?
The Great Pacific
Garbage Patch.
Right.
Sorry about that.
No, that's right.
Yes, and then touch a little bit about commercial real estate, and then finally wrap it up with, of course, the hot topic of debate and conversation. How high will they go?
Yeah, they're still stuck on the debt ceiling.
Yeah, they need to get Snoop Dogg in there, man. Get them real high.
You know, when Lex, the camera guy, was counting down, when he said 9, that stuck in my mind because there's 9 days left. Yeah.
Yes.
It stressed me when he said 9. Thanks, Lex. That's all I need just before we start.
See, we need to talk about your mental health conditions.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So for the first quarter of 2023, the senior vice president and chief economist of Fannie Mae, Doug Duncan, put out a quote. He said, on a quarterly basis, home prices rose, seasonally adjusted 1% in Q1 of 2023. So the fact that prices rose slightly in the first quarter nationwide, it's evidence of significant pent-up mortgage demand despite the ongoing affordability constraints. What does that mean in layman's terms? Basically, it means, rates have gone up, but because everybody stopped buying in 2022, there is a backlog of people that need to buy. And in addition to that, the rates that people are paying isn't significantly impacting them yet. And that's what's translating into increased activity, which then increases into, we have a shortage of homes, so now home values need to go back up. So while we did drop home values nationwide, including here locally, significantly, they've actually started going up in the last couple of months. We have seen the evidence of that happening. And as a result, can we say that the home value drop has stabilized? Nationally speaking, the Case-Shiller, the FHFA, and CoreLogic have all been tracking the month-over-month adjustments. And from July until December, drops have been anywhere between 0.3% to 0.9%. And they hard stop almost in January, December, with February and March both showing flatline or positive home value appreciation. So that's a nationwide input. Locally, our median sales price stabilized in November at $430. December, January, February, and March all stayed at $425 for our median price point. And then finally, with last month's report just being released, our home values went up by $5,000 to $430,000. Right. So fascinating trend that we're seeing nationwide as well as locally for those home values. And the question now is, are we done? Is there more room to grow? We've been talking about the Fed and its fight against inflation. We'll talk a little more about that here in a minute. But with the Fed trying to do that and raising rates, will they put a pause on it, or will there be continued rate hikes going along? I think Jamie Dimon's got a little input on that as well, right?
He does, yeah. Jamie Dimon is sort of warning regional banks, and specific to the commercial markets, that to expect the probability, and when Jamie Dimon, says the probability, you have to take it seriously, that the Fed could go to 6 or 7%, up from 5.25.
Yeah.
So
that's a possibility.
Yeah.
And a real possibility.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so with those factors in mind, it is absolutely possible that there might be some more room to grow. At the moment, all of the evidence is pointing to this year's activity will continue to feed home price appreciation, and as long as we if we can get more inventory in the books, well, that's going to help stabilize how fast things move. So that what that means to sellers is, yes, you've heard a lot of negative movement, but be aware there has been a stabilizing moment in the marketplace. And if there is a need to make the move, make sure you get that consultation to understand your specific scenario, because this would be the window of time where you can get your house on the market, still get top dollar, and make the move and purchase without having to deal with the drama that we dealt with in 2021. Now, there have been some headlines over the last few weeks regarding foreclosures and the increase of foreclosure filings. And most people will that are in that dialogue, in that conversation, are going to say something along the lines of, it was an unprecedented 22% increase in filings and so forth. But you got to take it in context as to the overall activity and amount of activity that we're dealing with. Yeah, that 22% jump is based off of the last couple of years of filings. There were 95,712 U.S. properties with foreclosure filings during the first quarter of 2023, and a total of 65,346 properties that started the foreclosure process. Nationwide, one in every 1,459 housing units had a foreclosure filing, with lenders repossessing about 12,000 properties throughout Q1 of 2023.
Really?
Now, put that in perspective as to what has happened over the last 10, 15 years. We are nowhere. We are a fraction of the amount of activity that was happening in 2008, 2009.
Any idea what percent that is of the total housing market? It sounds extremely low.
It is very, very low. 4 million is the number at the moment as far as number of active properties out there, just a little over 4 million. So 12,000 units is less than 1%.
Oh yeah, it's tiny about. Yeah. So like if you go from 0.2% to 0.4%, that's like 100% increase, right?
Yeah, sounds great in a news post, but
I guess yeah.
And in fact, with the number of property filings that are currently active nationwide, we're still, I mean, it over 2021 and 2022 during the COVID lockdown, there were around 300,000 units. You contrast that to what was happening in 2008 and 2009, where we were over 900,000. Wow. So less than a tenth of what was happening back then. Right. Put it in context. Yes, there might be some more activity, and yes, we might see more of that, but it's not going to have any sort of significance or contribution to a crash in the housing market. Why? Because of equity. Because of the home values appreciating as much as they have over the last couple of years, 60% of the nation has more than 50% equity in their home.
You're kidding.
And almost 30% of those have them free and clear.
Wow.
So there isn't a shortage of wealth and equity. It's simply a matter of timing and really understanding what each situation is different, what each situation is. And so that's where we stand today in the marketplace. Here locally, our median sales price, $430. We do have an inventory amount of about 2 months, which means it's favorable to sellers who are thinking about making that move. Make sure you have a consultation. Understand what your situation is. Get the resources that will help you make that transition as clean as possible. And that's why we're here. Right, the Uraine Ordonez 5 Diamond Group here at Vice Realty. Senor.
Before we go on,
shoot.
Locally, if there's a distressed property, you're not seeing that get foreclosed, right? I mean, that's not even...
I just had an offer accepted on Friday,
right?
With an investor who never wanted to spend more than $100,000, especially over the last couple of years.
On what?
I know, right?
His shoes?
I've been trying to get him to the point where it's like, hey, home values have gone way past that.
Yeah.
But the point is he's stuck to his guns, and he is purchasing a home. that is in has a tenant living in the property in
Right.
excellent condition, built in the
Wow.
last 20 years for under $300,000
You're kidding.
cash.
Wow.
It's a phenomenal deal. It's a rare gem to find.
Wow.
Home values right now, because of where they're at, it is very difficult to find anything under 200,000 and under 300,000 for that matter. Entry level price point is around 300, and there is plenty of competition, multiple offers happening in each one of those places.
So if there was a foreclosure, it'd have to be on the high end, right?
Foreclosures at the high end are happening. True, yes.
Yeah, it'd have to be above the FHA limit, I'm guessing.
Depends how much cash you're putting down.
Yeah. So anybody below 700,000, if they're behind, in their mortgage, they're not going to have a problem moving that property. Am I right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in fact, when you get past the
Wait a
650,
minute. Did we
700,000.
just say the low end is below 700,000?
Yeah, well-
Did those words escape my lips?
Maybe I should have stopped you there.
Yeah.
Well, so 700,000 in California is median,
Right, yeah.
and here locally in Vegas, 430 is our median price point.
But what's FHA locally?
Here in Clark County, 492.
Oh,
is the
okay,
loan
so that
rate.
would be the low end. Anything below 492.
If that's how you categorize it.
Well, if FHA, yeah.
Right.
So because if there's a distressed property, somebody can pick it up through FHA. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, and in fact, there's FHA does a really great job in helping folks get minimum out of pocket. That means the lender is going to be putting in 96% of
Right.
the loan into the house. That's a great advantage, minimum cost to get into
Right.
a home, but then that's going to translate into a higher monthly mortgage payment, especially with the rates where they're at today. And so you can purchase a $700,000 house if you're putting 250 down,
Right.
and still get an FHA loan.
Right.
Different dynamics, but it's absolutely possible. In fact, we've got another client who's doing that at the moment because there was a bankruptcy on file. So
Right.
we need to the advantages of being able to use what we have available to us to help clients get and make the move happen. Yeah. The Great Pacific Garbage Patch.
Yeah. Isn't
Talk
that,
to me about that, my friend.
Well, okay. Do you have an extra? Where's my plastic bottle?
Oh, it's on the floor.
Oh,
It's on the
yeah,
floor.
Yeah, they probably moved it for the camera.
Here, let me grab it for
That's
you.
my prop.
There you go.
There,
You
I
got
got
it.
it. I got it. Yeah, I put it there. So, plastic, right? So, the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Do you, by chance, have an extra $3,500 laying around just because of the extreme climate patterns?
I don't know. Maybe.
If you have to, right?
Right.
Well, typically speaking, that's how much it is for each of us because of climate change. It's
Costing all of us.
$3,500 a year. It's costing the planet 5% of its GDP, which is $4.3 trillion.
Wow.
Trillion dollars because of the extreme climate patterns. And part of it has to do with the Great Pacific Garbage Patch.
Elaborate.
How did it get there? That's kind of the fun part of the story. Well, let's talk about recycling, right? When they recycle this bottle, they're only going to recycle globally 9% of it. 9% of all plastics get recycled. In the United States, where would you think, if the planet's at 9%, how much do you think it is in the U.S.?
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, I know, it's a trick question.
It sounds like you're trying to trap somebody there.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. 5%.
Wow.
Okay. So let's pretend this bottle happens to be a part of the 5%. Because they just did a study in Great Britain. I'll go ahead and take the prop away. They just did a study in Great Britain of a recycling plant, which is one of the more advanced recycling plants in the world, which uses lots of advanced filters beyond the government regulations. So they go above and beyond government regulations in this particular unnamed plant. They don't want to be named. Anyway, 13% of that bottle goes right back into the atmosphere and into the sea because of the recycling method. So you got a couple of problems. Number one, only 9% of all plastic is being recycled. And, globally, in the U.S., it's 5%. And of the small amount of plastics that are being recycled, 13% of it goes back into the air, into the ocean. Isn't that remarkable?
Yeah.
They found molecules everywhere within human bodies, in fish. They found them at the Arctic and the Antarctic.
Yep.
We are immersed in plastic.
It is.
So the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. I did some looking up. It's twice the size of Texas in square miles. It is. It's larger than Central America, France, Great Britain, and Italy combined.
Goodness.
Yeah. If it were a country, it'd be the 43rd largest country in the world.
Its own continent.
Yeah, out of 195 recognized countries by the United Nations. Is that remarkable? And my favorite story about the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, there's some people trying to sell real estate there. I love that story.
Really?
Yeah. You can get, oceanside property real cheap.
Oh,
yeah.
no.
You need to expand,
Nope.
Put an office out there. Yeah.
No. I'm skipping that one. Sorry.
Yeah. So how did it get there? And I played around with the chat AI, and the chat AI kind of inferred a little bit, but it didn't tell the details. Back to my prompt. Let me grab it. Can you read the recycling thing on there? Can you find it and read it? And it should show that it's recyclable. It has a number by it, but then it makes a statement.
Okay, so
Did you find it?
California CRV,
Right.
Hawaii, Connecticut 5 cents, Oregon 10 cents.
No, that's the...
Yep.
Yeah.
And then it says this product may not be recyclable in your area.
Which it is not.
Recyclable bottle end cap.
Yeah. It's recyclable, just not here. Not in the United States, actually. There's... Yeah. And so it's kind of a funny story. My brother in California... They pay him $100 a month, which I think is pretty impressive, for him to put his garbage into the proper bins, right? And then, so they'll take his plastic specifically, and it does go to a plant where they clean it up, right? They clean up the plastic. And then, but because there's no effective, or there's an extraordinary finite number of effective recycling plants in the United States, that plastic won't get recycled here. It used to go to China. It no longer does.
Right.
Now it goes to Indonesia. So
just to be dumped into a fill.
well, no. Indonesia is supposed to recycle it. They used to send it to China to recycle, but that's a very labor-intensive thing, and the Chinese economy doesn't need to work on. They're making iPhones. They don't need to recycle plastic, so they stopped taking American garbage. That's actually what the headline was at the time. Now it goes to Indonesia, and they recycle it. But when the recycling plastic gets to Indonesia, if it's not cleaned to the standards that will allow Indonesia to make a profit, what happens to the plastic, Jared?
Tossed.
Into the ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's where the Great Pacific Garbage Patch comes from.
Yeah.
Is that remarkable?
Yeah, and I remember hearing about the recycling plants when they are filtering it locally, at least the ones Republic Services talked about, how if an item that's in the plastic section isn't cleaned or has any sort of residue in it, it doesn't even go into the recycling bin. They're not going to do anything with it. They're going to move it into the landfill on it.
Interestingly, in California, they don't ship. They recycle. They clean it. They prepare it and everything, but they can't always get it shipped to Indonesia. So they spend the money to give my brother his $100, and then they spend the money to take it to a plant to get cleaned, and then they put it in a landfill.
The cost of economics: shipping our trash across the ocean for another country to deal with it.
Right, and so
it's more effective that way, right? Cost effective?
In somebody's mind. Yeah, because the reality is when you think of the carbon footprint of shipping all the way to Indonesia, that doesn't
insanity.
work. And then Indonesia, they take about half of what they receive. It doesn't meet their standards, so it goes right back into the ocean.
Wow.
So on balance, had we never started recycling back in the early 70s, the world would have been a better place.
It would have been better if they didn't invent plastic in the first place.
That is correct. Yeah, that is unfortunate.
The 50s, 60s, and 70s. I mean, all the things that were used with this new material. I remember as a kid growing up and seeing some of the items that were in the house that were made in that era. Different kind of product, but man, they were designed to be indestructible. They were designed not to break down, and that explains why it takes at least 10,000 years for that stuff to break down.
Oh yeah, they say the plastic in the ocean is indefinite.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not going away anytime soon. So it's costing the world $4.3 trillion. That's a huge contributor to climate change. Things that contribute to climate change, such as El Nino,
You end up posing some really good questions on your blog post. You say questions arise about what other solutions can be explored to tackle the plastic pollution problem. How can we reduce our reliance on plastic?
Right.
What alternatives can be explored to replace single-use plastics? And how can we encourage more widespread recycling practices? I mean, there are attempts to use bamboo and wood for straws and cups, cardboard and so forth. Reducing the use of plastics is really just the target, in my opinion. Just the absolute elimination of it, because there really shouldn't be a purpose. You can use something else to build those products. All it is an economic purpose.
Right. Well, in my household, what we do is we'll take the old empty water bottles and we buy jugs of water and we refill.
Yeah.
And we'll use those
Reuse
bottles
it.
till they don't work anymore.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree, and that's one of my personal missions in life is to minimize any amount of plastic that we use in our family, in our house. Period.
So it breaks down to $3,500 a person. Is that impressive?
That's amazing.
It's costing all of us, not just plastics, but everything that contributes to the extreme weather patterns of the planet. It's costing all of us about $3,500 a year. And I'm not talking about just keeping the AC on. I'm talking about in addition to
everything else.
Yeah.
So commercial real estate is another topic that is in the news recently. What's the deal with that?
Well, commercial real estate we talked about last week, and it's the next financial shoe to drop. You mentioned just a little bit, we were talking about how the real estate market residentially is very strong, and it is because there's a lack of inventory. It's a little bit stagnant. I think, did you say Q1 was plus 1%? Was that year over year? Yeah. So that would be considered a stagnant market for real estate, but it's not declining, which is good, and there is a shortage. There's a housing shortage, not so in the commercial real estate market.
Right.
Jamie Dimon announced on Monday that his concern, the next concern for the economy, period, is the commercial real estate market. As we discussed last week, there's going to be $1.2 trillion that get rolled over in the next 12 months. And we're looking at a lot of defaults in the commercial market because of the incredible vacancy rate in the commercial market. And there's, especially in city centers around the country, Jamie Dimon estimates that the default rate in the commercial market is going to be between 6 and 7%.
Wow.
Yeah, he says that's okay. It's not going to be as bad as it was during the 2008
recession. Yeah,
right.
Recession.
Because back then it was 10%, but 6 and 7%. That's going to have a rippling effect on everybody, on the entire economy, actually.
And so that's the next chapter for me specifically in my business adventure is business brokerage. We purposely landed here because Vice Realty is a licensed business broker, and we're building that component out here on our team to address these changes, these shifts that are going to be happening. We know it's going to happen.
With every dark cloud, I guess there's a silver lining. There is an opportunity as the commercial market goes through that transition. As the commercial market, as those persons who own that real estate roll into the higher rates, they can no longer afford it. They don't have the tenants in place, and so they'll default. But people that are able to adjust quickly can turn those properties into, instead of using them for commercial space, multifamily, turn them into condos. Or there is private equity that is looking to purchase commercial based on multiples of 1 to 3. And they are hoping to grab that commercial space and do exactly what I just described. Either turning it into a high-end commercial space, which will draw high-end customers where they provide gyms and daycare centers for the employees, or turn it into condos.
Interesting.
And I do personally have some private equity contacts here in town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are 9 days away from Janet Yellen's ex-date. The debt ceiling is apparently still dysfunctional in conversation.
Yeah.
What's the latest on that, my friend?
Well, 9 days away. The fact that we're 9 days away is a problem. Are you able to look quickly and tell me the exact reason that the United States government's credit rating was downgraded in 2011? Because it's extraordinarily relevant today.
So Moody's
Yeah, Standard & Poor's.
downgrade.
There's a reason. Why did they, just type in, why did they downgrade the United States credit for the debt ceiling crisis in 2011?
Oh my gosh, that's too much to type. Why did Moody's downgrade the United States in 2011?
Yeah, their credit rating, yeah. And there's a very specific term in there that I was hoping to capture. See, if I had memorized it, we'd be better off. I apologize.
Let's see.
Did you get it?
More broadly, the downgrade reflects our view that the effectiveness, stability, and predictability of American policy making and political institutions have weakened at a time of ongoing fiscal and economic challenges to a degree more than we envisioned.
There it is. The dysfunction of the political infrastructure is why they got downgraded.
It said effectiveness. No, I'm just kidding. You're right.
Yeah.
Otherwise, AKA dysfunctionality.
Right.
And that was in 2011.
Right. And the problem is they don't want to change. They don't want to change. Those legislators have only gotten worse since that time. You know, are we still in mental health awareness?
We are.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How many therapists does it take to change the mind of a politician?
Oh, dear. I didn't even know that was possible. How many?
Only one, but the politician has to want to change.
Yes, naturally.
Yeah, and they don't want to change.
They don't.
It is what it is, you know.
In fact, the polarization and really the intensity has increased over the last few years.
Unfortunately. And so we're 9 days away. And so the question isn't, well, now they're actually considering, you know, there are some, and there's even some, which we discussed last week, in leadership roles of different parties that would consider a default. But anyway, nobody knows what a default will look like because we've never done it.
Yep.
The bigger concern that I have is we are getting so close to the date that the Treasury will run out of money. Will it cause that dysfunction of political infrastructure, or however you want to term it? Will that political dysfunction cause another downgrade to the U.S. credit? So there's a couple of wild ideas that are out there on how to solve this without Congress, you know.
Yeah.
And one of them is pretty well known, how the president, according to the Constitution, could invoke the 14th Amendment. That's very controversial, and even the president himself said that he didn't think that would be effective because the minute he tried it, it would get blocked in the courts, and then you'd have a constitutional crisis. But there's another one that is kind of exciting. It's being spoken of by economic professors and law professors in that community. It was about a little-known law that was passed in 1997, and this law allows the Secretary of the Treasury Department to instruct the Mint, the United States Mint, to mint whatever money she wants. And in the law, they passed that the Treasury Department could, if they wanted to, pass a law that they could mint $1 trillion coin.
Let's just print more money.
Yeah, well, right, but that's what raising the debt ceiling is anyway.
Yes, right.
It's printing more money. So they could mint $1 trillion coin. They decided it would be on platinum, the coin. They haven't really decided on the size. The coin's not been printed, but
that is an option.
It's actually an option.
consider.
Janet Yellen can get together with Jerome Powell and discuss it, and if they decide, Janet Yellen just calls the Mint and says, you know what, send me one of those $1 trillion coins. And the Treasury Department has exercised that in the past.
Interesting.
Yeah, But how they exercised it wasn't really a $1 trillion coin.
They exercised that law, not in the sense for the debt ceiling, but
Right,
they were
right.
able to exercise the execution of that experience.
There you go. Thank you. How they did it, does everybody remember when those little 50 or 25-cent coins came out and each one
With
had
the
a
states, yes,
yeah, with all
and
the different
territories.
states. Yeah. And that turned out to be a wonderful collector's item. Actually, it's the number one coin collector's item in the world.
It's funny, I have a collection myself.
Oh, really? Of the 50 states?
Of the quarters, yeah.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. I think that's really nice. But anyway, so the Treasury Department, they wanted to mint that coin, and they didn't have to go through Congress to do it because of that law that was passed in 1997.
Interesting opportunity.
That same law allows the Treasury Department, without asking anybody, it's up to the discretion of the Secretary of the Treasury, Janet Yellen. She could pick up the phone and call the mint and say, you know what, send me a $1 trillion coin.
That would be interesting to see.
Well, yeah. Unfortunately, all of these crazy ideas are tied into politics, so that's probably not something that Janet Yellen's going to do. Yeah. So if there was a default, this is an interesting optic. The Treasury very likely would pay on Treasury notes and bonds around the globe to sustain the worldwide economy. That would be the first thing they do with any money they have available to them.
So they would pay the interest on bonds
to other countries, and they would default first on they would default on Medicare and Social Security right away.
That's going to piss off a lot of America First people.
Yeah. I mean, so imagine, your Gold Star family's not getting paid, but China is.
Right.
Yeah, that would be kind of not a
interesting little quandary for some of these folks in politics.
So that's 1 week from Thursday. 1 week from Thursday, $45 billion of Medicare is supposed to go out. Probably will not.
Right.
On the Friday after that, $25 billion of Social Security is supposed to go out. Social Security pays out $100 billion a year, but they pay it 4 times a month. And so the first time they pay it is on the 2nd of the month. So right away, you're looking at $70 billion that'll be in default. It won't be in the Treasury. They won't have it.
Right.
Yeah.
Fascinating moment in history, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Interesting. Stay tuned because that's just 7 days away, pretty much.
Well,
8.
Well, here's
9. Sorry.
Well,
yeah.
When they defaulted last time, it's because they got within 72 hours. So that's 3 days, right?
That's the threshold.
So we're 9 days away. So if they don't do something by this weekend, we potentially are looking at another credit downgrade.
Interesting.
Right? 6 days away. What's today? Tuesday? Yeah, if it's not cleaned up by Monday. No, Monday might be too late. They need to get it done this weekend.
Yeah.
Wow. Scary. Yeah.
Well, that is the real estate and the economy for this week. We will be back next week to see where we're at then and go from there. Miguel, anything else before we wrap it up?
Yeah. Where are you going to be next week?
Next week, as in...
Oh, next week, Tuesday, you'll be here.
Next week, Tuesday, yes.
But on June 1st, the potential day that we default, you'll be...
I'm flying out, man.
Yeah.
I'm getting out of town.
You'll be out of Dodge, huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
Summer vacation for the family.
Right on. Very cool. Yeah, that'll be nice. No, that's pretty much it. Just stay tuned and keep doing whatever you're doing. Don't change your life just because of all that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just keep doing what you're doing.
It's going to happen what's going to happen.
It's going to happen. And the government will take care of it. It's just how quickly will they do it and what will be the consequences.
Yeah. And it's fun to pay attention to it.
It is, yeah.
Well, that does it for this episode of Real Estate and the Economy this week with Miguel Francis, myself, Jared Uraine, broker salesperson here at the Diamond Group Advice Realty. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like this episode, please feel free to share it. You can also, in the description below, have access to the links not only to our social media accounts, but also to Miguel's profile. If you want to follow him on LinkedIn, you can find him under Miguel A. Francis,
nope,
right?
It's Michael
Francis.
Michael Anthony Francis on LinkedIn, the Armchair Economist.
Yes.
I do a newsletter daily and multiple posts.
All right. Sounds great, man.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for joining me, my man.
Right on, bro.
All right. And that does it for this episode. Have a wonderful day.